I call it sickness.
Spending is an addiction.
It is an addiction.
Yeah.
I had this high every time I bought something, especially clothes, accessories, jewelry, and they could be like just fun hats.
Clothes are like a drug to you.
They are. And I
They are
like
like a drug.
boutiques. That's my thing. But it's more that rush that you get. And then I find you get the rush and then that's it. It's over. Was it worth it spending that money?
There's one quality I really love about you.
What's that?
Actually, there's a lot of qualities, but this one in particular is if we don't get a perceived value for something that we pay for, you're really good at getting our money back for that thing.
Yeah, well, I think from being in the car business forever, we've helped people. When they're not happy, we make it right.
Yeah, sometimes I think I'll just blow it off because I don't like the confrontation.
Right.
But you're willing to do it. And we had a little incident where we ordered cabanas, something we would never done before in our life. We were heading down to the beach and we were staying a few nights and we knew it was going to be a super hot. We're not beach people.
No.
But the couple we were with are beach people and we wanted to get cabanas. So we ordered 2 of them, one for us and one for them. And it didn't quite turn out as we thought.
They're expensive too. They were like $150 a piece. And where we stayed, they shuttle you to the beach. There's nice umbrellas.
Yes.
And you can get service. They'll bring you lunch. So that's probably what we should have done, but we thought, let's do cabanas. It's so hot.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Treat ourselves.
They made the cabanas look like they were the greatest thing in the world.
You'll be in a nice cabana and have a cooler filled with ice, with drinks and beverages.
A butler. They were going to give us that you would have butler service, which they would go back and forth from the beach.
I think you get that with an umbrella.
They would get you. No, I don't know. They would give you food. The beach. Remember, the hotel's 3 blocks from the beach, so they were going to. They would bring you food. They would bring you whatever you wanted. It was a neat thing. Plus, you were going to be shaded, even though it was a hot day. But the one thing the concierge every time you passed her, she kept saying how excited we was. Are you excited for the cabanas?
She was using her salesmanship. Mrs. Fisher, we're so excited. You'll be set up first thing in the morning.
Yes.
So we were excited. She had us excited.
We get down there. We get on the shuttle. The driver's really cool.
It's like a golf cart.
Tells us all the good places to go and eat in town. He drops us off. And when we get there, there's no cabanas. And we talked to the 2 people sitting where they build the cabanas. And they were like, oh, you're here now? Like, they were surprised. Like, we were told the cabana would be already built. So here we are standing there in the hot sun, 15 minutes while they're building these cabanas for us.
It was hot.
Yeah.
We were not really thrilled because she kept saying you'll just sort of walk right into the cabana. And again, when you're not into the heat and the sun and the beach, that's a big deal because we wouldn't go to the beach. We'd sit at the pool in the shade normally.
Right, exactly. And we also were hoping that they'd build the cabana close to the water as it was a very hot day. We thought it'd be cool if our feet were near the water or in the wet sand. And they said, no, we have to build the cabanas.
Well, I could see
here.
that. I don't see cabanas right in the water. Maybe little kids, little Johnny's tent, maybe.
No, I saw them a lot closer, but ours were right when you walk on the beach so that everyone could walk by us.
It was hot.
And kick sand in our face.
Yes. And then it was a scene from a movie, just standing there with all our stuff.
Yeah.
And then the cooler had very little ice, and we did not have a server because
the cabanas were small.
They were really
like when
small.
I would sit in the lounge chair, half my shoulder was sitting in the sun. There was no way I could.
It was like a towel was over you.
Very disappointed how small they were for 2 people. They could barely fit. The coolers had water. There was no ice left. That had already melted. Now I know it was a hot day, but I saw where they stored the coolers. They were out in the sun.
Right.
Put them in a little bit of a shaded area. So that was a disappointment. And then there was no butler.
Well, I think you investigated, and the guy said, by the way, it was a server. The server, they say butler when you're ordering it, but it was a server. So
no, I'm calling it a butler.
All right, I like that. So the butler, you said, what happened? And they said, oh, she quit today.
Yeah, she quit.
Not our problem.
That's not our fault.
Right.
You know, we're there paying a lot of money.
Where was the organization?
Right. We're paying a lot of money for these. And guess what? They quit. You know what? That's their thing. They got to have someone that's willing to step up and fill in, especially at a high-end hotel.
And we lasted about an hour.
Yeah, that's when we told them when we left. We said, "I'll leave this up. We might be back."
We weren't coming back.
No way we were coming back.
We should have given it to someone for the day.
So even the driver on the shuttle says to us, he said, you might want to mention it to them because they should have had those cabanas set up for you. We get back to the hotel. The other couple gets on the elevator, and right away I knew that you were going to go talk to them and said I'd probably be better off if I'm not around.
You were in the bathroom for hours.
I hit the bathroom, but so you go and talk to them.
And it was very nice. I said a positive first, what a great drive it was, the whole 3 blocks. And I said, unfortunately, it was not set up. We were under the impression that it would be set up, and there wasn't really much ice, and there was no one there to serve us lunch. And she felt bad. She's like, well, don't worry, you can do it tomorrow. And I was like, I don't think we're really interested in tomorrow. and it's going to be even hotter. And anyway, we chit-chatted a little bit, and she ended up refunding us the $300 for the 2 cabanas. I don't think there's anything wrong. We don't sit and look to get money back, but if the service is not what we expected, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a discussion. We dealt with it all the time in the car business if things didn't go the way the customer wanted.
And that was great. And you being the spender that you can be sometimes, you are very good. If we don't get the service that someone promises us, you're very good at getting that money back.
And I'm thinking $300, let's go. Like I can pocket that now and shop.
Well, yeah, that's your spending mentality, where I'm thinking we just saved $300. Let's put that away.
Right, which is better.
So anyway, that leads us into our theme of the show today, which is great. Saver versus spender. Can love survive in that type of relationship?
And our whole relationship, this has been our one argument. And when we were younger, it was constant. And
yeah,
I was a huge spender, and I didn't learn that till basically when I went to school on the main line.
Yeah, but I want to give out some stats before you get into your story, which we're going to get into. Money is the #1 cause of stress.
Yes.
In a relationship. And we can firsthand say that because really it's all we ever thought about was money. I mean, that was the main topic.
And we had to work through it.
Yes, we did. And then if you think about it, 41% of Gen Xers and 29% of boomers say that money is the #1 reason they get divorced now. The #1 reason. So money is a big thing in relationships. And then finally, 1 out of 3 couples say they fight at least once a month about money. And
I think it's more, once a week.
That is super low because we fought about it once, twice, 3 times a week. That's how big money was in our relationship. And I think you have to look back at the psychology of why you're a spender and why I'm a saver for us to relate to each other. I think that will help the relationship out. And as you were saying earlier, why do you think you are a spender? What is the reason?
I came from a family, we went on a few family vacations a year, but my parents weren't like, we're staying at the Ritz-Carlton, they just did things I felt normal. They were into education. If I went to Israel for 6 weeks when I was in 9th grade, that was education. That was worth spending money on. But not like the way I spend. I mean, my mom would go to Walmart. She'd say, I have this cute little colorful outfit. So no one was really like that in my family.
But did it ever come up in your family? This is probably a thing, because I know this came up in my family, is when we were going to do something, they'd say, we probably shouldn't do that. We don't have the money for it. Was that a phrase in your family?
It wasn't, because my parents always budgeted for the things that we were going to do during the year, but they weren't extravagant.
Okay. But it was never,
at least the family things. They were, Disney, different trips. My parents always went away on their trips as well. And listen, we stayed with sitters from agencies, and the 4 of us sent the agency person home before they got home, but that's a whole nother show. So anyway, I think, as I call it, sickness, and it could be
spending is it's an addiction.
It is an addiction.
Yeah.
And when I saw the shops on the main line, I had a really good friend. She was a great shopper. And I had this high every time I bought something, especially clothes, accessories, jewelry. And they could be like just fun hats.
Clothes are like a drug to you.
They are. And I like
boutiques.
That's my thing. We're not into cars. We don't spend them on cars or houses. We did once on a house, but it's more that rush that you get. And then I find you get the rush, and then that's it. It's over. Was it worth it, spending that money that later, as you say, we could save? And I end up living in the same couple things. I call them uniforms.
So you think that from your college experience, that's when your spending really took off?
It started. And I know when I would ask my dad for book money, the book money turned into boutique money. Hold your ears, Bubbles.
So you kind of got over on him, and I can relate to that, because we're going to get into that in our story too, is how being a spender like you were, you tried certain ways to sneak around.
Always.
Yeah. And why was I a saver? I try to look back, and the biggest thing for me, I think the reason I save so much is my fear of the future. Because I feel like I'm going to live till I'm 100, and I want to make sure that I'm financially secure in all those extra years when I may not be working.
And that's an amazing attitude. Like, life is short. I'm not saying spend it all, but enjoy life. Spend it, because you're such a good saver. It gives me that security of spending more, which is really not a good attitude.
And you'll say to me sometimes, you'll say, why are you saving this money? Let's live for the day. You want to live in the
Be in
moment.
the moment.
And that's a great philosophy, living in the moment. But again, I still have that fear that money, you don't want your money to run out. And so that's
Sure.
one of the reasons I'm a saver. And my parents never had a whole lot. And it was brought up around the house at certain occasions, like we can't go out to dinner tonight. We just don't have enough money. That was on occasion, but not a lot. I always usually got whatever we wanted. It wasn't like money was that much of a shortage in the house. But again,
that makes sense why you're obsessed with saving. You want to make sure you're okay.
So
we're okay.
What are some of those things that you did in our relationship that I think people will relate to because they do it, wives or husbands, whoever the spender might be, to sneak around and still spend when the other one's trying to save?
Oh, if you want to grab some extra cash, when we were young, I wanted to food shop. I can't stand food shopping. I'll go, no problem.
Yeah, I always wondered why you were so excited.
So excited. $50 was the bill, $50 cash back. I'd pocket that, and that was a high.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, and we always both worked hard and had jobs, but we had our accounts together. And if you had a wallet and there were some 20s in there, I might help myself and not say anything because I always wanted that feel of, I want to buy this, I want to get that. And I'm sure it stems from within myself, from childhood. It makes me feel good. And if my weight's up and down and I have a new outfit and I feel good, I'm sure there's deep-rooted issues why I do this, because I know now when I'm really trying to work and not spend, it feels so good to say, I went to the store, I didn't buy anything. It truly is an addiction.
Another thing, too, is with that cash that I had, I always like keeping cash in my wallet for emergency situations. But I'm not sure how many guys actually know exact amount of money they have in their wallet?
Oh, I think most.
Really? I never do.
Really?
Yeah, I never know the exact.
I'm surprised being the saver you are.
No, I never know the exact amount of money I have in my wallet, but I always like to know there's a certain amount there because I learned from a lesson. I remember going to a Phillies game with a bunch of guys, and one guy came with like $10. $10 in his wallet. I remember everyone else was like, who goes to a Phillies game with just $10 in their wallet? And it turns out that he was borrowing from everybody else. But I've learned from that lesson, always keep money in your wallet because you never know what could happen. You get a flat tire, you might need cash for a tow truck. That's another way. I'm always in that saving mode, that saving philosophy. So there's a couple things that I do. I'm going to give some tips.
Okay.
To our listeners.
Tips and tricks.
To some things, and you can please add in if I miss something. But one thing I always say is the 10% rule is no matter what, I always try to put away 10% of whatever I earn. And in my case, it's a lot more than that.
Oh, usually when we were both working full time in the car business, you acted like I didn't even make a paycheck and you would put that away.
Yes.
Which was great.
Yes. And where do I put that money? If anyone would ask me, especially in like Vanguard 500 index fund, I put your money in that and just watch the compound interest grow year after year. And if you can automatically withdraw from your paycheck, that's easier than actually taking the money out. But I was so disciplined, I would not do the automatic.
You were very
withdrawal.
disciplined.
I would put in as much as I could into that fund. And then I also recommend to anyone with a 401k, put the most money you can.
Max it out.
Max that out every time, especially if your employer's adding some money to it as well. That's always a good thing. And then I always had an emergency fund. In case anything happened to us, I would always build my emergency fund first, then I would start my savings. But those are just some little tips. But I always say with your children, start them young with saving. That is so important, saving money when your kids are young.
I think Lily motivated you when she was young to do an interesting type of savings together.
Yeah, she came up with this idea where she had seen this, and I liked it. So she said, what you do is you have an envelope, and you put $1 in the envelope for the first week. Week number 2, you put $2. And every week after that, if it's week number 3, it's $3. And guess what? That money's going to add up over time. And I'm thinking, if I do it with her, it's going to motivate her. Well, of course, she stopped after week 4.
Well, but you had a nice little chunk for vacation that year.
Right. My money went up to week 100. Think about this, 156 I was up to. And that was like $10,000.
Amazing.
That we had saved for a vacation fund. So that's another thing I always like to do is I always plan ahead, no matter what I'm doing, even if it's something as stupid as if I know you're going to go to the beauty salon, I'll save that money ahead of time too. It's just another way that I like to budget. But so what are some things that we can do to help couples while they're trying to get through this stage of one spending, one savings? And how could you think we could help them out? I say talk early and often about it. Don't brush it under the
A
table.
lot of people brush it under the table because
do.
it's easy to do. Let's ignore it. And not only is that not healthy for your relationship, but it gives you agita inside because you're avoiding talking about something that you may have a problem with as well, whether it's spending or saving so much that you're not enjoying life. There has to be, again, balance.
Bring it to the forefront immediately.
Yes.
Bring it up right away. I know of a couple who actually split everything right down the middle.
Yeah.
So if the husband worked his job, whatever he made was his money. If the wife worked her job, whatever she made was her money. The electric bill, the gas bill, they paid those, split it right down the middle.
And it worked for them.
If she had a car, that was her car payment. If he had a car, that was his, and whatever they decided. So that way, let's say he went out and bought fishing equipment one day. She could care less because that was his money.
Right.
So that was a good way to do it. I kind of like the way that you and I do it, where, again, as long as I'm putting that money in savings, and then I'll tell you that whatever's left over, then we can have fun with that money.
Well, and I think another thing is the accountability. I had to become accountable where I don't own a credit card because I did put us in a little credit card debt a few years.
Yes.
And then
it wasn't a little, it was a lot.
It was a lot. It set us back about 10, 20 years. But
that's all.
Yeah. But now I check in all the time because I need it. If that's the way of survival, I'll say, Gare, if you don't mind, I'm probably going to go shopping. I'll need X amount next week, this day. And I feel good about it because I'm not just having a heyday where it causes an argument.
Yes.
And you don't do it to argue. You do it because we want to survive. We want to retire and be comfortable. So I admire that you had the patience to get me through this.
Well, guess what? I just thought of another savings tip. If we can go back real quick.
Sure.
This is the one that I really live by, is the 5 times rule.
Oh, yes.
You like that one too. So the 5 times rule is never buy anything you can't buy 5 of.
Yes.
So in other words, if a car costs $10,000, then make sure you could buy 5 of those, which would be $50,000. If you can't buy 5 of those cars, then you can't afford the one car.
Yeah.
Same with a house. If it's a $100,000 house, make sure you can buy a $500,000 house. If you can, then you'll be fine with that $100,000. So that always leaves you that little extra room to be okay with things. I do it with everything. TVs, you name it. I make sure to myself, can I buy 5 of them?
Well, you're so practical. A couple things. You're such a saver. You have a minivan you still drive that gets you from point A to point B with over 300,000 miles.
Yes.
No air. And I'm always like, why don't you just get a inexpensive vehicle that has air? You always say, I'm okay. And I remember after COVID, Lily and I were cleaning out the closets and you're like, where are my shoes?
Yes.
Like, I can't find my shoes to go back to work. And we're like, well, we threw out the pair that had 3 holes. You're like, those are my work shoes. And we were like, okay.
If it wasn't raining, those shoes were fine.
I know.
If the ground was wet, or if the sprinklers were on and I walked down the driveway, then my socks would get wet.
I felt awful.
Otherwise, those holes didn't bother me that much.
We would have gotten you a pair. You wouldn't have for yourself, but we would have.
And I probably go to the extreme. And the same with an automobile is I drive something till it dies. That's just my philosophy. That's how I do it. But getting back to how we can help people, the second thing after talking about it, I think is important, is to create a budget.
Yes. And the funny thing is, my dad said to us 38 years ago, one of the wisest men I know, he said, guys, write down your expenses for the month. Just put it in writing. And I always thought, we know what we're spending. We have extra money. We're saving. We're okay. But when you put it in writing that you spend on this, this, and this, you're like, whoa.
For us, it was an eye opener.
Oh my, and we just did it 4 months ago after he's been telling us for 38 years.
Yes. That was
Write it down.
It's so important because we were like, I cannot believe we spend this much money. That means we have to make this much money.
That's right.
Just to put this much away.
So you could cut back just by making that list.
You can. And then another thing is set financial goals.
Yes.
Setting goals is huge. And the way you can do that is, let's say that you're going on a vacation and you know that's coming up. Is my goal would be to save a certain amount for that vacation. The same with a home, the same with an automobile. Those are all good things to set your financial plans.
Yes. You always save for our vacations, whether we do 2 or 3 nights.
Yes.
And we want to stay in a nice hotel. You have that saved a year and some ahead for that.
And that's one of our things. We don't travel overseas.
No.
We're not big people to go overseas and tour
see
other
the world.
countries. We like to stay local. We don't like our vacations long because we like to get back in our routine. But when we go, we spend
do it
money.
right.
Those are some things I think that can help. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
We did have a house. I believe that at one time, our first house together was paid off.
Yes, it was.
And then I wanted to live closer to my family. And I remember my mom always saying, do not live for your mortgage. And we did. That was thanks to me. But you did such a great job saving for a decent house. That was paid off.
Yeah.
You had some goals.
I think that's a great point for our listeners and viewers is don't live for your mortgage.
Yes.
Because those high mortgage payments, in fact, even nowadays, I think a lot more people are renting because home prices are so high.
Be okay if you're renting. It's not like the old days.
Well, here's how that works. At the end of the day, you think your home is a great investment, and most of the time they are incredible investments, but people forget that they had to put a new roof on. The people forget that it might have needed a new water heater. So when you sell that house, you're looking at all the money you made, but over those years, you probably invested a lot of money. Where renters, that once they rent, they're just paying that monthly rent. They're not paying anything else.
So you're saving a ton more.
You kind of are. So it kind of bounces, and it depends who you are. But we right now are renting, and we enjoy that. We're in a beautiful place. Not an investment, but it's a great thing for us to save money in other ways.
Yes.
And if things are really bad because of the money situation, it's not a bad thing having a financial expert handle your money and help you along the way, especially as you grow closer to retirement. Sometimes they can give you advice that's very helpful as well.
Yes.
At the end of the day, love is an investment that pays the highest returns. Just don't forget to budget for it. So in other words, your love is more important. Your relationship's more important. Don't let money be the factor. Discuss it openly. And I think that will help all those money woes. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe and like. And then also when Gary met Wendy on TikTok, we're doing a little TikTok shop now where we're going to save you on some items. So check us out there. And we still have our funny videos that we do there that we know you will enjoy.
Have a great week. Mwah.